The world tells you to push harder, to force results, to chase faster, to grip tighter. Stoicism teaches a different power, not passive waiting, not weak surrender, calm alignment, clear judgment, disciplined action. Tonight, we train 10 rules that help you stop fighting life blindly and start becoming the kind of person who can receive good things well without panic, without desperation, without losing yourself. If this speaks to you, comment, "I choose calm power," and subscribe to Stoic Ocean. Rule 1. Detached desire. The first rule is detached desire. This does not mean you stop wanting. It means you stop clinging. Most people do not suffer because they desire. They suffer because they grip. They turn a goal into pressure. They turn hope into panic. They say they want success, but what they really want is certainty, and certainty is not theirs to command. The Stoics teach a cleaner way. Want deeply, work honestly, release obsession. You control effort. You do not control timing. You control character. You do not control applause. You control response. You do not control outcomes. That distinction changes everything. Detached desire means you move toward the goal without handing your piece to the result. You prepare well. You show up fully. You stay steady, but you do not collapse when life moves slower than your preference. Think about work. You want the promotion. Good. Study harder. Lead better. Become reliable. But the moment your mind says, "If I do not get this now, I am falling behind," discipline becomes fear. Think about love. You want the relationship. That is human. But when you start checking every message, reading every silence, measuring every delay, you are no longer loving. You are gripping. And gripping creates instability. Marcus Aurelius reminds us to stay with the duty of the moment, not the fantasy, not the fear, not the imagined future, the moment. That is where Stoic power lives. Ask yourself today, am I pursuing this with clarity, or am I squeezing it with fear? One creates strength, the other creates inner noise. A simple practice: write one desire, then write one process. Not what you want from life, what you will do today. That shift matters. Detached desire says, "I will act well. I will wait well. I will remain myself even while wanting more." Calm action beats frantic action, and peace grows when desire stops begging. Rule 2. Present moment magnetism. The second rule is presence, not empty stillness, accurate presence. Most people miss what they want because their attention is never here. Their body is in the room. Their mind is somewhere else. In tomorrow, in regret, in fantasy, in fear. They say they want clarity, but clarity does not visit a scattered mind. The present moment is not boring. It is where perception becomes clean. It is where you notice what matters. It is where judgment gets sharper. It is where right action begins. Epictetus taught that people are disturbed not by events, but by their judgments. And judgments become distorted when the mind is split. A distracted person cannot read life well. They miss tone. They miss timing. They miss openings. They react before understanding. They answer before listening. They decide before seeing clearly. That is why presence has power. In work, presence catches detail. In relationships, presence hears what is real. In conflict, presence slows the tongue. In opportunity, presence sees the door before panic talks you out of it. Think about how often people sabotage themselves. They enter a conversation already rehearsing defense. They start a project already fearing failure. They receive a delay and immediately imagine loss. They are not living in this moment. They are living inside projection, and projection makes weak decisions. The Stoic mind returns to what is here. This breath, this task, this sentence, this next move. Not the whole future, just the next honest action. A practical reset. Pause for one breath. Name the moment without drama. what is actually happening, not the story, not the fear, not the prediction, just the fact. Then ask, what is the best response available now? That question pulls you back from chaos to competence. Seneca warned that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. So train this daily. When your mind runs ahead, bring it back. When it runs backward, bring it back. When it starts performing, bring it back. Presence is not passive. It is disciplined return. And the more you return, the more life stops feeling random. Because you begin to see clearly, respond cleanly, and move with force that does not look rushed, but changes everything. The present moment does not give you magic. It gives you access. Rule 3. Accepted resistance. The third rule is accepted resistance. Most people see resistance and assume one thing: this should not be happening. But Stoicism asks a better question. What is this trying to teach me? Resistance is not always a stop sign. Sometimes it is training. Sometimes it is feedback. Sometimes it is the exact pressure that reveals where you are weak, where you are impatient, where you are still ruled by comfort. People want smooth outcomes. They want the path to confirm them. Easy means right. Hard means wrong. But life does not work that way. The obstacle does not always mean you chose poorly. Sometimes it means you have reached the point where theory ends and character begins. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. That is not poetry alone. It is practical. When a conversation becomes uncomfortable, you discover whether you value truth or approval. When a project slows down, you discover whether you value mastery or quick reward. When life delays what you want, you discover whether your confidence was grounded in character or in convenience. Resistance reveals structure. It shows you where you are solid and where you are pretending. That is why the Stoic does not waste energy arguing with friction. They study it. They ask, is this a wall or a weight? A wall asks for redirection. A weight asks for strength. Wisdom is knowing the difference. Accepted resistance does not mean you stay in every hard thing. It means you stop dramatizing difficulty. You stop saying, this is unfair, this ruins everything, this means I failed. Maybe it means slow down. Maybe it means adjust the method. Maybe it means build more skill. Maybe it means become tougher. That is growth. A practical move. When resistance appears, write 3 lines. What is happening? What is it teaching? What will I do next? That kills self-pity fast. Because the moment you move from complaint to instruction, you regain power. Do not worship ease. Ease can make you soft. Friction can make you honest. And honest people become dangerous in the best way. They stop breaking when life pushes back. They learn, they adjust, they continue. Not with panic, with discipline. Rule 4. Inner authority. The 4th rule is inner authority. This may be one of the most important, because many people do not live from conviction, they live from reaction. They say yes to keep approval. They stay silent to avoid discomfort. They chase what looks good instead of what is right. They call it strategy. Often, it is insecurity. Inner authority means your center is inside. Not in applause, not in permission, not in comparison. You listen to feedback, but you do not kneel to every opinion. You remain teachable without becoming shapeless. That matters. Because a person without inner authority can never move with real peace. They are always scanning. Do they like me? Did that land well? Am I falling behind? Am I enough yet? That is exhausting, and it makes people easy to control. Epictetus taught that no one is free who is not master of himself. That includes mastery over the need to be constantly validated. Look at how this appears in daily life. You know what you need to say, but you soften it until it means nothing. You know what boundary to hold, but you delay until resentment grows. You know what choice is clean, but you pick the one that keeps everyone comfortable except you. That is not kindness, that is self-abandonment. Inner authority does not make you rigid, it makes you clear. You stop asking the world to vote on what your values should be. You decide what matters, then you live it consistently. In work, this means you do not confuse busyness with importance. In love, it means you do not trade dignity for attention. In conflict, it means you do not let emotion write your principles. Seneca reminds us that the wise person is content with himself, not because he knows all, but because he is grounded. That grounding changes your voice. You speak slower. You explain less. You chase less. You beg less. You become harder to provoke, harder to manipulate, harder to rush. A practical question. Would I still choose this if nobody praised me? That question exposes a lot. Another one. What am I tolerating just to stay liked? That one goes deeper. Inner authority is built in reps. Each honest no. Each clean boundary, each quiet decision made from values instead of fear. This is how you take your power back, not by dominating others, by no longer abandoning yourself. And once your center is inside, life becomes clearer. Not easier always, but cleaner, stronger, more peaceful, because your direction is no longer borrowed. It is chosen. Rule 5. Strategic non-action. The fifth rule is strategic non-action. This does not mean doing nothing. It means not wasting movement. Most people believe power looks like motion. More texts, more talking, more pushing, more proving. But Stoicism teaches that restraint is also strength. Not every impulse deserves expression. Not every delay requires a response. Not every challenge deserves your energy. Sometimes the wisest move is not to rush. Not because you are afraid, because you are clear. A weak mind reacts to everything. A strong mind chooses its moment. Think about conflict. Someone provokes you. You feel heat. Your first instinct is to answer fast, to defend yourself, to correct the story, to reclaim control. But rushed reactions often serve emotion, not wisdom. And emotion is a poor strategist when it is flooded. Strategic non-action says, pause, let the noise settle, let the facts breathe, then decide whether this situation needs a response, a boundary, a delay, or nothing at all. That matters in work too. Many people confuse busyness with progress. They keep moving because stillness makes them uncomfortable. They send more emails than needed. They take on tasks that do not matter. They explain before results exist. They fill silence because silence feels weak. But silence is not weak when it is chosen. Waiting is not passive when it is informed. A chess player does not touch every piece just to feel active. He studies the board. He sees timing. He avoids wasting position for the sake of movement. Your life needs that same discipline. In love, strategic non-action means you do not chase every shift in energy. You do not send the fourth message just because anxiety wants relief. You do not explain yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you. Sometimes the strongest move is to let behavior reveal truth. In money, it means you do not make decisions from urgency alone. You do not buy to soothe emotion. You do not invest because panic whispers that you are late. In health, it means you stop sabotaging recovery with constant pressure. Not every plateau needs a dramatic fix. Sometimes the next gain comes from patience, consistency, and fewer bad decisions. Seneca understood that wisdom includes knowing when to stop, knowing when enough effort has already been given, knowing when forcing more would damage more. Ask yourself, am I acting because this is necessary? Or because stillness makes me uncomfortable? That question reveals a lot. A practical exercise. Before any important response, wait one full breath. Then ask, what happens if I do nothing for 10 more minutes? Sometimes nothing changes. Sometimes clarity appears. Sometimes the right move becomes obvious only after the urge to react has passed. Strategic non-action is not laziness. It is disciplined restraint. It is refusing to spend your energy just to feel temporarily powerful. Not every battle needs your sword. Not every door must be forced open. Sometimes peace grows because you stopped interfering with what time could solve better. That is not weakness, that is control. Rule 6. The discipline of gratitude. The 6th rule is gratitude. Not shallow positivity, not pretending everything is perfect. Stoic gratitude is more serious than that. It is the discipline of seeing clearly what is already here. Most people live in deficiency. They wake up measuring what is missing, what they do not have, what has not arrived, what others received faster, what life still owes them. That mindset creates pressure, and pressure distorts perception. A person trapped in constant lack cannot enjoy progress, cannot recognize support, cannot feel enough safety to act wisely. They may have opportunity, they may have health, they may have people who care for them, but none of it registers because the mind is fixated on the gap. Gratitude interrupts that. It does not kill ambition, it purifies ambition. It says, I can want more without despising what I have. I can build without living in complaint. I can grow without turning today into a failure. That is powerful. Marcus Aurelius often returned to the gift of this moment, this body, this task, this chance to act with virtue now. Not someday, now. Gratitude brings you back to what is real. The breath you still have, the lessons you already learned, the strength you have built, the people who stayed, the quiet chances still in front of you. Without gratitude, the mind becomes greedy, and greed is rarely peaceful. In work, gratitude means you stop ignoring the ground you have gained just because you are not at the summit. In love, it means you stop demanding perfection from a real human being. You start valuing presence, effort, honesty, before your hunger destroys the good that is already here. In money, it means you stop living as if worth begins at some future number. You become more careful, more patient, less reactive. In health, it means you stop hating your body for not being ideal and start respecting it for still carrying you. That shift matters because people who are grateful become steadier. They are not so easy to manipulate with envy, not so easy to destabilize with comparison. They become less frantic, and calm people make better decisions. A simple practice. At night, write 3 things. 1 thing that supported you, 1 thing that taught you, 1 thing you usually overlook. Do not write to sound wise. Write to see. Gratitude is not decoration. It is correction. It corrects the lie that nothing is working. It corrects the habit of scanning only for absence. It corrects the restless belief that life begins later. And when that lie weakens, you become stronger. Because the person who can recognize enough does not panic while building more. That person can receive well, steward well, and grow well. Gratitude does not make you smaller. It makes you harder to impoverish from within. If this is helping you reset your mind, comment, I act without panic, and subscribe to Stoic Ocean. Rule 7. Emotional sovereignty. The 7th rule is emotional sovereignty. This is not the absence of emotion. It is mastery inside emotion. Many people are ruled by feeling without realizing it. A message changes tone, and their peace disappears. A delay happens, and they imagine rejection. A criticism lands, and pride takes the wheel. A lonely evening arrives, and suddenly they want to return to what already hurt them. This is common. But common is not the same as wise. Emotional sovereignty means your feelings are heard, but not obeyed blindly. You do not deny them. You do not worship them. You let them speak. Then you choose. That is power. Stoicism never asked you to become numb. It asked you to become governed. Because an ungoverned mind makes expensive decisions. It sends the message that should have waited. It says the words that damage trust. It quits too early, returns too early, buys too quickly, explains too much. It lets a temporary emotion create a long-term problem. That is the danger. Feelings are real, but they are not always reliable instructions. Fear says run, anger says strike, shame says hide, loneliness says settle. If you obey every emotion the moment it rises, you do not have freedom. You have reflex. Epictetus teaches that freedom begins when you learn to govern yourself. That includes the space between feeling and action. That space changes lives. In relationships, emotional sovereignty means you do not read one cold moment and create a whole story. You do not punish before understanding. You do not beg just because you feel insecure. You return to facts first. In work, it means you do not confuse stress with truth. A hard day does not mean you are failing. A delay does not mean you are doomed. A mistake does not erase your discipline. In conflict, it means you stop using anger as your voice. You speak after clarity returns, not because your feelings do not matter, because your values matter more. A practical framework. Pause. Name. Choose. Pause before the reaction. Name what you are feeling without drama. I feel hurt. I feel fear. I feel shame. I feel anger. Then choose. What action fits my values, not just my current emotion? That question builds sovereignty, and sovereignty is built through repetition. Each time you do not send it. Each time you do not escalate. Each time you sit with discomfort without surrendering your dignity. That is training. Seneca warned that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Emotional sovereignty protects you from that. It stops feeling from becoming fiction. It stops intensity from becoming identity. It stops one bad moment from writing the whole story. You do not become strong by feeling less. You become strong by being led less by whatever you feel first. That is maturity. That is steadiness. That is how peace survives pressure. And when peace survives pressure, your life stops being driven by every internal storm. You become calmer, cleaner, harder to shake. Not because life stopped being emotional, because you stopped handing the wheel to every passing wave. Rule 8, the freedom of enough. The 8th rule is enough, not giving up, not shrinking your dreams, not pretending you no longer care. Enough is different. It is the ability to say, what I have today is not nothing. What I have built matters. What I have become counts. Most people live in endless comparison. Someone is richer. Someone is faster. Someone is younger. Someone is ahead. And because of that, they cannot enjoy their own ground. They cannot feel progress. They cannot rest inside their own life. They keep moving, but never arrive. Because the problem is not location, it is appetite without wisdom. The Stoics understood that a person who never feels enough can never be free. Not because ambition is wrong, because comparison poisons ambition. It turns growth into self-rejection. It turns desire into chronic dissatisfaction. It makes people blind to what is already strong in their life. The philosophy of enough does not kill hunger. It cleans hunger. It says, I can want more without insulting the present. I can build more without calling today empty. I can admire someone else's progress without turning my own journey into failure. That is freedom. In work, enough means you stop treating every unfinished goal as proof you are behind. You respect the ground you have already covered. In love, it means you stop demanding constant intensity to prove something is real. You learn to value steadiness, honesty, presence, and peace. In money, it means you stop tying your worth to the next number. You become harder to manipulate through envy, status, and fear. In health, it means you stop looking at your body only through criticism. You start seeing strength, recovery, and the simple miracle that you are still here and still able to improve. Seneca taught that poverty is not having too little. It is craving more than enough. That line matters. Because many people are not poor in resources, they are poor in sufficiency. Nothing lands, nothing satisfies, nothing stays long enough to become peace. A practical exercise. Define enough in 4 areas. Enough work, enough money, enough rest, enough connection. Not forever, for this season. What would enough look like right now? That question restores sanity, because when enough is undefined, the mind becomes bottomless, and a bottomless mind cannot feel abundance. It only feels lack. The philosophy of enough returns you to grounded ambition. You still move, you still grow, you still build, but you stop living like life begins later. That shift changes everything, because the person who knows enough cannot be rushed by comparison, cannot be emptied by every image, cannot be controlled by endless wanting. That person has space inside, and space inside is power. Rule 9. Authentic expression. The 9th rule is authentic expression. Not saying everything, not saying it harshly, not performing honesty as aggression. Authentic expression means your outer voice matches your inner truth with dignity. Many people do not speak clearly. They perform. They soften too much. They hide too much. They exaggerate too much. They adapt too much. They say what keeps the room calm, not what keeps the soul clean. They call that maturity. Sometimes it is fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of conflict. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being disliked. So they smile when something hurts. They say maybe when they mean no. They say it is fine when it is not fine. They stay quiet until resentment grows teeth. Then one day truth comes out sideways. Too sharp, too late, too messy. That is what happens when authenticity is delayed too long. The Stoic way is cleaner. Say what is true. Say it with measure. Say it without performance. Say it when it serves clarity, not when it serves ego. Marcus Aurelius valued straightforward speech. Simple, clean, unconfused. That matters today. Because many people do not suffer from lack of feeling. They suffer from lack of congruence. Their life says one thing, their mouth says another, their body feels another. That split creates inner noise. Authentic expression restores alignment. In work, it means you stop pretending to agree with what weakens standards. You raise concerns early and clearly. In relationships, it means you stop testing people instead of telling them. You stop expecting mind reading. You speak needs, limits, truth, and intent. In conflict, it means you do not weaponize silence. You also do not weaponize honesty. You speak to clarify, not to punish. That distinction is everything. Epictetus reminds us to be disciplined in speech, not excessive, not chaotic, not driven by image. A practical challenge. Find one conversation you have delayed. Ask yourself, what truth am I avoiding? Then shape it simply. No speeches, no drama, no performance. Just the truth that needs air. Maybe it is. That does not work for me. I need more clarity. I cannot continue this pattern. I want to be honest about where I stand. That is authentic expression. Not loud, not theatrical. Clean. And clean truth has power. Because once your words match your values, your energy changes. You stop leaking strength through pretending. You stop editing yourself for approval. You stop living in hidden contradiction. That creates peace. Because peace does not come from being liked by everyone. It comes from no longer betraying what you know is true. Authentic expression is not about being raw. It is about being real with discipline. That is what gives your voice weight. Rule 10. Trust the right timing. The 10th rule is trust in timing. Not passive waiting. Not magical thinking. Not the fantasy that life rewards you for doing nothing but hoping. Stoic trust in timing is different. It means you keep acting well without panicking about the clock. Most people do not only want results, they want results on their schedule. They want healing by next month, success by next quarter, love by the exact date they imagined. And when life moves differently, they spiral, they rush, They force, they overcorrect, they abandon good process because the timeline feels insulting. This is where many people destroy their own progress, not from lack of effort, from impatience. They dig up seeds to check the roots. They push conversations before trust has formed. They quit too soon because the payoff did not arrive when expected. They mistake delay for denial. But delay is not always denial. Sometimes it is training. Sometimes it is preparation. Sometimes the thing you want requires a version of you that does not yet exist, and time is building that version. The Stoics knew that control is limited. You control how you act. You do not control the full schedule of life. That truth can make you bitter or make you wiser. Trusting the right timing means this: I will not stop working. I will stop panicking. I will not stop caring. I will stop begging the clock to obey me. That shift protects your process. In work, it means you keep building skill even when recognition is late. In love, it means you let truth unfold instead of forcing certainty. In healing, it means you stop resenting the pace of recovery and stay loyal to what helps. In money, it means you stop making reckless moves because patience feels slow. Seneca warned against suffering early for troubles that may never come. Obsessing over timing creates exactly that. You suffer twice. Once in imagination, once in reality. Sometimes the second suffering never even arrives. A practical question: am I following a wise process, or am I trying to control the calendar? That question will humble you. Another one: what becomes possible if I stay steady for 6 more months without drama? That is how real lives change. Not always through speed, through sustained steadiness. Trust in timing does not mean everything happens for a mystical reason you can already explain. It means you refuse to ruin your character because life is slower than your preference. You keep showing up, you keep learning, you keep refining, and you let time do what force cannot do. Mature love needs time. Deep skill needs time. Strong character needs time. Stable success needs time. So stop treating patience like weakness. Patience is disciplined confidence under uncertainty, and the person who can act well while waiting well becomes very hard to stop. Now bring all 10 rules together. Detached desire keeps you from begging. Present awareness keeps you from drifting. Accepted resistance keeps you from folding. Inner authority keeps you from borrowing direction. Strategic non-action keeps you from wasting power. Gratitude keeps you from inner poverty. Emotional sovereignty keeps you from self-sabotage. The freedom of enough keeps you from comparison. Authentic expression keeps you from inner division. Trust in timing keeps you from panic. Together, these rules create a different kind of person. A person who can want more without losing peace. A person who can move strongly without moving desperately. A person who does not need to force life to feel powerful. This week, choose one rule. Not the easiest one. The one your life is resisting most. Practice it for 7 days. And comment below which rule you choose. These rules mean nothing if they stay as ideas. They must become practice. They must enter your schedule, your speech, your decisions, your reactions. That is how Stoic power grows. Quietly, daily, honestly. So take one rule this week, not the easiest one, the one your life needs most. Practice it for 7 days, one clear step each day. That is enough. Remember this: calm is strategic strength. Process beats emotional urgency. Values beat validation. Truth simplifies your path. Stillness can be leverage. Gratitude stabilizes the mind. Consistency builds quiet power. And Stoic practice compounds daily. Comment below with your chosen rule and your first action. Subscribe to Stoic Ocean. Share this with one friend who needs calm strength. Until next time, stay stoic, stay strong, and stay open.